My name is Nadine. I'm one of the co-founders of Particula, and with Particula we created the first data platform and rating agency for digital real-world assets, and we started with collecting data and rating tokens from the sustainability space. That's why it's really important for me to talk more and more about refi. And like we already said, I'm the moderator for you today for this panel. And so now I would love to have an introduction to our panelists today here. Actually, we were 5. One of us is unfortunately sick, so now we are just 4. And I would love to hear who you are and what motivates you guys to work in this specific field today, or what is interesting for you in this space.
Okay, thanks for having me. My name is Sören. I'm CEO of Water 150 by Longhouse Foundation. We tokenize water wells, drinking water wells, and by doing that, we secure abundant life on Earth for the next 7 generations. We think it's crazy that 1 billion people in the world don't have access to clean drinking water today. We also think it's crazy that water ecosystems globally are depleting due to overuse, due to pollution, and that the current economical system doesn't have anything in common with securing life on Earth. So we envision a future where everyone has access to clean drinking water, and we treat water as the sacred resource that it actually is, and that we have an economical system that is in harmony with nature.
Right, thank you for having me. And my name is Wiliam Zijthoff. I'm the co-founder, one of the co-founders of Carbify. We are world's first certified carbon debit. And we plant a lot of trees in the Amazon, especially improving social food security, having a social impact. We do 250,000 trees per year. We geotag them one by one, so always on chain, so we have the whole supply chain visible for everybody. And the trees, they absorb CO2, and our NFTs generate CO2 tokens. And we are certified by a United Nations auditor, and we are at the same level as the current carbon credits that everybody probably knows. But we want to move away from the term carbon credits. It has a bad taste right now, a lot of scams going out there. Also a lot of good ones, but they're being snowed under by the bad ones. So we decided to do carbon debits. And we only issue the CO2 after the tree is being absorbed, not a future promise. So you are sure that there's always CO2 absorbed by the trees, and when you buy it, you know that you are doing something good. And social impact is super important. That's why we started Carbify, to leverage blockchain technology and improving livelihoods and food security, education. With our trees, we can feed 30,000 people per year, local, so indigenous tribes. And it's great to see. And my other 2 co-founders are sitting there, and next week we are going again in the Amazon to those trees, and it's you see the love from all the people that you meet there. They're so happy that you are making a change for them. That's me.
Perfect. Awesome to see so much impact being made here. So we run a venture capital fund. We're called Blockchain Founders Fund, based out of Singapore. And my name is Toby, I'm a partner there, and we backed over 125 companies in the Web3 space now, and we're looking to obviously find a lot more gems also at this conference here. So please, have a chat with me if you're building something interesting, especially in the refi space. I think that's something which came up for us more recently, where we looked at not just only the sustainability side of things from a DeFi angle, but also tokenizing real-world assets. We heard about water, we heard about carbon credits, carbon debits, and that's something where we look into super early projects, pre-seed and seed, and we try to back them with capital between $100K to $5 million. And hope to talk to many of you guys and hear more about the successes you've been made over the past years and months.
Thank you, everybody, for being here today and sharing your expertise with us. It's really, really great to have so many different perspectives, different use cases, investor perspective. That's really I like. Yeah, maybe also to start with, interestingly, last year, one of my co-founders were already being in contact with the BLOCKCHANCE Orga team and asked them, hey, are you aware of regenerative finance? Did you have something in the agenda? Did you plan something? And they're like, yeah, we are not really aware that there's like an evolving space. We just heard a little bit that there's something about impact and blockchain, but not much more. And we were like, oh, that's great, because we would love to do something in this. And maybe also to really start into the topic, let's maybe ask you guys what do you think regenerative finance is actually, because we heard DeFi a lot. What decentralized finance means, I think everybody is aware, but regenerative finance, most people are not really aware about that. So maybe, William, what is your perspective on regenerative finance? How do you define it?
I think the difference between DeFi and ReFi is that you, well, the word says it's regenerative finance, that you at least use or do something with your funds or your company to regenerate. That can be different things, water or trees or nature. I think in blockchain we all want a different name for it, but I think it's I think ReFi is the future. We're moving away. I think that ReFi needs to be in new companies. I mean, if that's in your mission and your vision, you'll get more groundwork done, and it's very important. But yeah, we don't have a clear definition on what we think ReFi is, but we implement it in our day-to-day business.
Yeah, right. So this is always what I tell. There's no like fixed definition what ReFi actually is, because it's so new and everybody probably has his own point of view on it. So maybe Sören, do you have also thoughts you want to share?
Well, I mean, I'm a pretty practical guy, so we just kind of focus on being sustainable. In terms of water, we see, even though we see water as a sacred resource, we do also see that it's important for us to live. We want to use it, we have to use it, we have to drink it. So what we take care of is that we never extract more of the water flow that is coming in. We don't never take out more than is coming in. So it is actually sustainable.
Great, great. And also when we talk about, in general, about blockchain and use cases, in DeFi, but also in ReFi, we always have to ask ourselves, why do we need actually blockchain? Is it really bringing value, or can we just do it in a traditional way? So maybe, Tobias, do you have an opinion why we should tokenize those real-world assets? Where's the advantage, or maybe also the challenge?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, because we as investors, we see a lot of projects who are trying to use blockchain, sometimes just for the sake of having a blockchain component to it, because it either enhances the business from a perception perspective, right? Because it makes the investor feel better that they're using something which is more emerging tech. But not everything obviously needs to be tokenized or needs to be on the blockchain, right? I think that's also sometimes you have to make a distinction, because the whole tech layer in terms of blockchain also includes friction, right? It makes it sometimes more difficult to use for consumers, especially in that area where we are right now, where the infrastructure in itself is not always the most consumer-friendly one. I'm pretty sure that we see different use cases and different user experiences moving forward. But I think the benefit here is, you have a lot more transparency, right? Look at the credit market right now, for example, on the carbon side. There's a lot of transparency. A lot of people don't know what they're doing, you don't know what they're selling, what they're buying, and I think that's where the blockchain component, including obviously tokenizing it, can bring a lot more transparency. It's more traceable, it's also more auditable, it's because it's all tracked. But I think the challenge, what we see sometimes, is like you have always this garbage in, garbage out challenge, right? So of course the information on the blockchain itself is accurate, but like how do you get the information onto the blockchain and make it accurate in the first place? That's, we have different companies that are trying to solve that, of getting information safely onto the blockchain, either in an anonymous way or not. But like I think we need to look at the whole supply chain in that perspective, right? It's not just only what is on chain, like how do you get it on chain and what are we going to do with this information? But I think it's nice because the tokenizing aspect gives you an easier way of reaching investors and clients. And you can also, in terms of the water aspect, what you're bringing to attention, it's an asset class very few people have access to, right? And that's for the most part of these more sustainable assets in that sense. And I think that's where your audience from an investor perspective becomes a lot larger and a lot more transparent. And I feel people, I want to add on to this whole refi definition section. It's also like, I feel refi gives people access to have, basically participate with an impact. It's not just only the big corporations where you say, oh, I have nothing to do with it, I cannot change anything, I cannot do anything, but now I think you can be a part of it, either employees of a company or any retail investor in the world, or even corporates, and I think that's what the technology enables in a safe and secure way. Of course, yeah, there's challenges, but I think there's a lot of great companies trying to overcome these by building better consumer-friendly apps, but also a lot more targeted assets, which gives us a broader range of investments.
Yeah. So many good thoughts. Also, you mentioned it, garbage in, garbage out. I think that's a problem. The sustainability space in general, not only like combined with Web3 now, but in general, always have the problem of traceability and transparency, and also like measuring real impact. Maybe Wiliam, when you started Carbify, why did you choose blockchain, and how are you like actually making sure that you measure the real impact? Are you even able to like do it fully, and how do you do it?
Yeah, I think the measurement aspect is always the most difficult thing, because you cannot rely on blockchain, only on blockchain. We choose to do blockchain because we can have the whole supply chain on chain. So we plant a tree, we geotag them. So we need satellite data. We still need something different than blockchain. That satellite uses biomass images, so we can see that there's an increase. We have drone images, videos, that's all still off-chain, of course. But the GPS location of a tree is in the metadata. And when you buy CO2, we can always track where it came from, and you can always track it back to the tree itself. So you know for sure that there's a tree. But what Tobias said is that you have garbage in, garbage out. So that's why we did an audit. We want all the legal side. You need to start right from the scratch with all the compliance methods. And we see it in blockchain, we see a lot of cowboys and crypto projects that are not doing that. And even for us, it's very hard to get everything done right. Everybody's making it super difficult. But for us, it's important. If we want to claim that we have the highest quality of carbon, then we should also have the highest quality of transparency as a company itself. And that's why we choose blockchain, to have the transparency and traceability of everything on chain.
This is a great approach, because when we started, for instance, Particula, that was like the first thing when we talked to over 200 industry experts, like head of sustainabilities, also from big classical industry companies, and asked them, hey, are you aware of those digital solutions? And if yes, are using it? And if not, why not? And they also like basically told us that they are like regulatory insecure. They're like, what does it actually mean when I invest in this as a company? Like, what do I actually buy, and what does it mean for my balance sheet? Then the security aspects, like how secure is it, especially when we asked, or when we spoke to the people, it was last year when FTX happened. So of course, everybody was a little bit skeptical and thought cryptocurrency and tokenized assets are the same thing. So it's really difficult to explain what is the difference. And the last thing was that they have like really, it's really hard for them to find reliable like resources, and also those departments and those companies, for instance, are really small and very young. And they said, hey, we just don't know where to start. We have to calculate the scope. We have to electrify our whole car fleet, for instance, and we just don't know how to do it. We are super overwhelmed. And I think when you have as a project such an approach, it's like the only way which you can actually be not only a sustainable project, but also having a sustainable business model, which the actual industry wants. And also maybe, I mean, carbon, you cannot actually see and you cannot touch it, but water, you can actually touch it and see it. So in my head, it would be probably easier to measure it, right, as compared to carbon. And I would be interesting to know also from your side, like how do you measure the water perspective? How do you do that?
I mean, I can't compare it to carbon credits because I'm not the expert in that sense. So I don't know if it's easier or not, but I also assume it's easier. We work with hydrologists. Before drilling a well, we measure the water flow in different areas, so we know exactly how much water is coming in, and then it's very easy to measure how much water is coming out as well.
Yeah, great. And also, Sören, when I talk to a project, I always ask that. How is it? So, what do you think the space needs in order to reach mass adoption, like to get more people from the industry, for instance, to actually buy those products? What do you think is needing right now, and which would help? And so and maybe also, what is your challenge right now?
Garbage in, garbage out, FTX. There's a lot of scams happening, especially in the crypto industry. So we don't have the best PR. And going out to normal people is, in that sense, difficult. They might think, oh, it's all a scam. So as soon as they hear blockchain, crypto, they have their guards up. And that definitely needs to change. So we need good causes, good projects, legitimacy that bring legitimacy to the space.
And education, probably, right?
Education as well, absolutely. Many use cases in crypto are complex. Ours as well. Ours is very, very complex because it has so many different layers. You might understand one layer in a minute, but then all the additional implications, it takes a while to understand. And that's why I believe most projects, including us, we need to lead with education for everyone to really understand it. At the same time, usability is still a pain. Like, I don't want to explain to my mom how to create a wallet. Like, she's not going to get it. I mean, she's going to get it after a while, but most people don't want to go through that process. So we need to make it as seamless as possible for everyone, to include everyone in this movement, in this technology. So the technology in itself needs to step in the background, and we need to focus on the actual use cases and conveying them in an understandable way.
Yeah, great. And also, again, from an investment perspective, Tobias, what makes you excited about a project? Where do you think, what does a project has to have in order that you say, well, that's really reliable, that's something I will put my money into it?
That's a great question. I think obviously there has a lot of nuances to it, right? I mean, we clustered in sort of, I would say, 3 big topics for us. Number one, probably not very surprising, is the team. It's always about the execution at the end of the day, and like we see a lot of, I mean, we look at 500-600 companies a month across the whole team. That's kind of like comes to the funnel as a high level. And a lot of ideas overlap slightly or fully, right? Which are the direct competitors or indirect competitors of like what the companies are doing. So most of the things we have either seen before or at least had an idea before that this has been built. And then it's really about the team who is executing this, right? When we get on calls, a lot around us is really understanding the domain expertise of the founders, the passion of the founders. I think that's also a really big point. I mean, starting a company is not the most easy journey, as you probably can tell. And we need someone who's fully committed, not just from, I want to get rich perspective, but I actually want to do this business, right? I don't want to pivot. I don't want to do something which might be easier, but I'm doing this for my general conviction. And that's probably actually quite difficult to see on calls, right? Because of course, everybody's going to show their best side, the investors and the founders. But like, what is your general conviction of why you are now tokenizing water and not doing another startup or going to, a more stable job? That's the first thing. And the second thing for us is when we go to the actual business side of things, obviously technology is important for us, and we need to understand, and we typically rely on outside advisors on this as well. But we want to understand, like, why does it make, what's the USP of your business, right? Is it the tech because you're just so much better on building a product, or is it because you go to market, your marketing idea is way better? Is it because you target customers more effective? Like, what makes you stand out, right? Which goes away from just the greatness of the team, but also how well thought through is the business from a both tech and a business perspective. And then we have a big piece, which is legal, which is especially important in blockchain and crypto because you have different assets you can invest in, right? Either sometimes companies raise on token or they raise on equity, right? So it needs to give us a sense of like, where's the value accruing? Is it better for us to back a token or better for us to back an equity, especially when there are two assets at the same time? And of course, also from a regulatory perspective, like where's the company incorporated? Could this lead to issues? I mean, if you're now a security tokenizing company and you're in the US, you probably have a bit more challenges. But also if you're incorporated in Austria, for example, right? It's very difficult with their legal structure to raise from US investors. Like all these things we need to have in mind. And then I think across founders, business, and legal, that's kind of how we kind of position ourselves. And it can be that like the legal piece is weaker than the business, or the founding team is weaker than the business, and then we sort of assess those three segments and make a rating of what kind of risk can we tolerate and also mitigate. Right, it's very easy for us to mitigate a legal risk because we have lawyers on the team. We can just tell them like, you know, fix this or try to fix it. But it's very difficult to fix a founding team, right? And we've seen with 125 portfolio companies, we've seen a lot of things, you know, so many things can happen even from a team perspective, where this is probably, in my opinion, the most important thing when you back an early stage business where there's less quantitative numbers to evaluate.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And now for the last minutes, I also want to ask the audience, do you have a question for one of the Great.
That was fast.
Yeah, thank you very much. So, to Frank, it's the first time I hear about Refi, and my question is simply, so how are you making money? So the business model currently of a Refi company. So, yeah, I want please understand.
Yeah, I have my own microphone.
Yeah, forgot.
Yeah, no money. Yeah, but it's funny what you just said about that it's not always about making money. Of course, you need to make money. We are all commercial companies, so we earn money. We have different revenue streams. We are building a game. We have premium accounts. We earn a little bit of money on the trees. We take fees in CO2 when we sell the CO2 to companies. So I think for us, for a company, it's very important to have more than one revenue stream. So I think if you are on one revenue stream and it goes away, you have a big problem. So within Carbify, we make sure we always have 5 or 6 revenue streams from the B2B, B2C, from the game, from auditing other companies in their carbon neutrality claims or on their way to carbon neutrality. But so we have a lot of business, a lot of revenue streams.
For us, I mean, charities are great, right? It's a great cause, but you constantly keep depending on donations. So we strongly believe in businesses being able to do good. The water business can be a very, very profitable business. To source 1 liter of water, you pay $0.00004 per liter, which is nothing, right? So the actual water sourcing is very cheap. About 50 cents then is for bottling and distribution, and then comparable water that we source is sold for $2 in the US right now, $7 by 2030. And so the potential profit margin is very big. We invite our community to buy our token, and we tokenize, fractionalize it, and we sell 1 liter or one token, which is 150 liters, but over the next 150 years at 10 cents. So at that step, we already make a good profit. We have a good margin. However, our customer or community member does as well. On top, we do sell the physical water. So for us, even though we are an impact business, and the actual impact that we're causing is one of the main drivers, the big vision, we are focusing on a profitable business. And the way the system is designed is that as all stakeholders' interests are aligned, so the more profit, or the higher the token price, the more impact we are causing.
Just quickly add on to this. Revenue from an investor perspective is not like just revenue, right? There's different distinctions of revenue. For example, we want to see recurring revenue ideally, right? Because then it's measurable, and then we can also better evaluate the business, right? For example, what is very challenging for us, if you have businesses who only generate revenue by selling certain NFTs, meaning one time of revenues, which typically also depend on market and sentiment and community, it's very difficult to figure out if they can do this again, right? So that's why SaaS companies are so easy for an investor to invest in, because it's very easy to know what happens. Is it churn? Is it not? I mean, you just figure it out, right? And like, if the business grows, you have more revenue. But in crypto, it makes it a lot more difficult, because you either have you get revenue from certain trading volumes, right, or volume in general, or typically you have an NFT component. So it's very difficult to model such a business and actually figure out how to account for that in the future, which then obviously reflects to today's valuation of the business.
Okay, great. We have time for one quick final question. Does anybody has a question? Oh, you're coming. Great.
So a couple of years ago, I hosted an event in Africa, a blockchain week in Africa. Africa is a huge market, and one of the main stances and narratives that we covered during the event was, of course, decentralized finance and financial inclusion, right? That includes the sustainability track as well. So one of the things that we discussed, and I don't think it has been solved ever since, is the infrastructure problem. Of course, we can talk about revenue. Of course, we can talk about pursuing the bigger goal, right? To like how we change people's lives for better, how we add more sustainability and scale businesses. But then again, it all comes down to infrastructure, to whether there's internet connection in that place, in that country, whether there is hardware problem, whether anyone has a smartphone to install, let's say, a decentralized wallet or a Web3 wallet to send crypto to, I don't know, his grandmother in the neighboring country. So, and in that case, where do you see the solution of this problem? Do you think that we need to, I don't know, partner up with telecom companies, which is a centralization, and a sort of? Do we need to figure out, like, add a centralized element to it to solve a hardware problem, and the infrastructure one? Which problem needs to be solved first? Depends on the market, of course, but in general, I mean, I'm talking about the emerging markets.
Tough question. Who wants to answer?
I know, it's uncomfortable.
I can,
It's also a lot.
We experienced that same problem because we plant trees in the Amazon at indigenous tribes, and we have to explain them what a phone is. They've never seen a phone in their life.
Exactly.
Then we need to explain, okay, this is a smartphone, you need to geotag your tree. They're like, geotag, what's a satellite? And so you have to, I think we tackled the problem with education. I think that is where it all starts. For us, we don't focus that much on the money for the tribes, but more the food that their trees generate, so they can sell it, and then they have their own infrastructure. But I think it starts with education and teaching people, companies, communities, countries, how it works, what they need to do. But I don't think that we can. Oh, I'm sorry, my alarm goes. I don't think that we can.
Lunchtime.
Yeah, it's time. I don't think that we can fix that as projects. I think we need governments. We need lots of people to do it. Everything that we do is like a drip on a hot plate. But we can start. I mean, we can start by educating people, teaching them about water, about trees, or maybe funding. I think that is our start.
I'm just going to keep it very short because you have 40 seconds left. I don't think we're going to move directly to a full decentralized infrastructure. I actually don't think this at all. I think there's going to be a mix, and there's certain elements where like a decentralized aspect might be better throughout the supply chain of whatever we're talking about. But like we need to solve like fundamental challenges first, right? So for example, we invest in a company called Kite Financial. They're basically doing exactly what you said. They figure out how can we send crypto from A to B with no internet.
Yeah,
right?
people need to have access.
Exactly, right? So
Yeah.
like there's certain problems which need to solve first before we can even layer these more complex solutions on top of it. And that's also a challenge for us as an investor. It's always like we hear these amazing solutions, right? We solve the whole world and everything's going to be amazing. But they're quite difficult even for us to understand, right? And like they already need so much understanding and technology, which if you actually go to these markets, for example, I lived in Cambodia for like 8 months, right? Which was like the second poorest country in Asia. There's literally nothing like this happening, right? And like, so we need to start very different. And I think a partnership aspect, what you said, partnering with telcos, even on a hardware scale, making this cheap and affordable, that people can actually buy it, right? Because you're not going to expect that you have a lot of iOS penetration in Africa or Cambodia, right? No one can afford an iPhone.
Exactly.
So like we need to start somewhere else and I really break it down to basics and then figure out how can we scale up from there. So that's why I think it's going to be a mix of a centralized and a decentralized piece. Eventually we might move into a decentralized sort of area, but I think that's going to be still years away.
Where is it needed, right? Thank you, guys.
Unfortunately, we are coming to an end, but I really, really enjoyed this discussion. So thank you guys for sharing your expertise, your perspective. I think it was really valuable. And also, if some of you still want to know something about blockchain, sustainability, or refi in general, you can come up to us, write us, follow us, and we are happy to answer more questions. And also, one personal thing I also want to address here, Particula, so my company, and Vanagon Ventures and Frankfurt School Blockchain Center and Akota, we are creating 18 weeks certification program. It's called Refi Talents because, as you heard in the panel, education is key. And this free program, we really focus on all the basics you have to know if you want to do something in the space, or do you just want to hear more. So come to me, I can give you a QR code and you can just apply for the program. And yeah, enjoy the blockchain. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bravo. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Well, it's lunchtime. Make sure to go to grab some food, stay hydrated. The program will resume after the lunch. And I will see y'all tomorrow. I'm Olga Yarshevsky, conference producer for AIBC. Hey, thanks for the picture. Yes, so we're going to proceed with sustainable finance and DeFi and financial inclusion tracks. So make sure to be here after the lunch. Thank you.